me, Mario! Hello!
Happy Halloween, everyone! I love this time of year because I love scary things, but do you know what I love more than Halloween? Conspiracy theories. But do you know what's better than that? Conspiracy theories about video games. Super Mario 64 is one of my favorite games of all time. I know, right? Such a hot take. But this game single-handedly revolutionized gaming forever by defining an entirely new genre of platforming. This game is genuinely a masterpiece, but there was always something about it that kind of threw me off. I mean, pretty much everyone with a set of hands has played this game, and I bet a lot of people didn't think too much of it. But there are a lot of people out there, myself included, who noticed that Mario 64 has always had a sort of creepy, eerie vibe to it. And this has been a topic of discussion within the Mario 64 community for a very long time now. Many iceberg charts about the game reference very disturbing topics, like ghosts of Wario showing up that are just figments of our imagination, the negative emotional aura that's emitted by Wet Dry World, and how could we forget the infamous every copy of Super Mario 64 is personalized phrase. Now, obviously, all of these are made up just to get a little scare out of people, but their existence shows that many people share the same feeling about Mario 64. It's a common occurrence for people to see this game as sort of off-putting at times. But why is that? So let's just start with every copy of Super Mario 64 is personalized. This theory basically states that every single copy of Mario 64 is different, usually in a way that caters to the player. Yeah, what a load of bullshit, right? I mean, I can see the thought process here because, well, you know what, let me just provide an example. Have you ever visited a friend's house and played their copy of Mario 64? I mean, depending on how old you are, maybe not. But you can definitely relate when I say that playing their copy felt slightly different from playing your copy, even though it's the same game. Now, this is most definitely due to more outside factors rather than the game itself. I mean, playing the game in a different setting would naturally cause the game itself to feel slightly different. Combine that with the fact that your friend's progress in the game was probably different as well, and yeah, this whole theory just kind of falls apart. But there's still an aspect that holds bearing, and that's what is known as the negative emotional aura. As I mentioned before, Mario 64 gives off this eerie vibe at times. Just walking around the castle, it feels kind of empty and lonely in a way. It's kind of hard to describe. We have the occasional toad that shows up here and there, but that's really it. There aren't any decorations or anything of that sort either. All you have are these blank walls with paintings on them, and that's really it. I mean, as kids, we can all admit that we got a little anxious exploring this castle at times. We just wanted to get into the level because, admittedly, exploring the empty castle was kind of creepy. But yeah, again, this is really difficult to explain because there just isn't any way to describe it. But you get what I'm saying, right? The castle Plexus has been another topic of discussion within the community. This topic has multiple parts to it, but basically, Peach's castle is alive in a sense. Like, every part of the castle is interconnected to make the player feel a certain way. This all traces back to theories of an experimental AI that was used in earlier stages of this game's development, and how it affected the player's experience. I mean, we can all agree that Peach's castle isn't designed in a way that makes a lot of sense. There aren't really any actual rooms or anything, it's just a bunch of empty hallways with paintings. This alludes to the theory that Peach's castle isn't really a castle, and this emptiness contributes to why multiple players feel this way. In fact, it's clear that most of the castle is simply blocked off from the player. Looking on the outside, we can see that there are multiple windows and towers, but of course, we can't actually explore any of them because they're just not accessible by the player. Imagine if the castle was built like an actual castle rather than a maze of empty rooms and paintings. If that were the case, then I think that eeriness would be gone. But here's the next part of the theory. So it was discovered, to no one's surprise really, that the castle's interior isn't really an interior. Using hacks, we can see that the castle's interior just doesn't fit in the outer shell. Now, of course, this was done due to the fact that, well, it's kind of hard to fit all this into an actual castle, but it just adds to the point that this isn't really a castle, and that idea as a whole contributes to the emptiness and loneliness of this game. As for the actual courses, there are a couple that definitely give a creepy vibe. The obvious one is Big Boo's Haunt, but comparing this to other spooky Mario levels, this one is actually kind of scary at times. The atmosphere really sells it though, especially with the background music. The skybox also depicts a dark and creepy forest, so yeah, It's a creepy level. It's obviously going to be off-putting to some people. But on the other hand, we have Wet Dry World. This course has been a huge topic of discussion within this whole Mario 64 is personalized thing. Most people who play Mario 64 can agree that Wet Dry World gives off some kind of negativity. So when you're playing on a new Mario 64 save file and you're just having the time of your life, but when you get to Wet Dry World, you just want to stop playing. And that's because this level is kind of eerie, if you get what I mean. It just feels kind of uncomfortable to play this course. I mean, the level design is frustrating for sure. These stupid enemies give me a fucking headache, and I'm sure many of you can relate to that as well. But the actual environment of this level is depressing almost. Just look at the skybox. It's a realistic city, but it's flooded. A realistic looking area within a Mario game is already pretty weird, but the fact that the city is flooded is just the cherry on top. But what really sells this negative aura is the village hidden underneath the surface. This has always been weird to me because it seems that this village was intentionally built here, and the setting is just depressing. This village clearly had nobody living in it, which just makes it feel lonely. Along with that, the cramped space it's built in gives me a sense of claustrophobia almost. It's this empty, lifeless village compacted in this tiny cave below a body of water, and it's obviously been flooded, similar to the village we see in the skybox. And this depressing feeling that Wet Dry World gives is honestly the biggest contributing factor to this whole thing. Most of the other levels in this game felt very alive because they were bright and colorful and had actual living inhabitants, but Wet Dry World simply doesn't have that. Instead, we have this lifeless world that makes a lot of us feel uneasy. But yeah, Mario 64 has always had a creepy vibe to it, and that is just a result of multiple design aspects. From the lonely nature of the game to the purely abnormal design of some of the levels, Mario 64 has always stood out to me as one of the creepiest Nintendo games. Now, of course, the game isn't actually scary, it's a fucking Mario game, but there are a lot of instances in this game that are just kind of disturbing, and it's clear that this has always been the case for many fans of the game, as the multiple conspiracy theories surrounding the eeriness of this game have gained a lot of popularity, because to no one's surprise, many people can relate to them in some way. Do I believe in any of these theories? Not really. I mean, I can admit that this game has made me feel uneasy at times, but I don't think Nintendo intentionally messed around with experimental AI to make this game feel creepy for most people. It's just one of those things that made us feel creeped out as a kid, so as we grew older, it just kinda carried over. But that's going to end this video, everybody. I've wanted to discuss the creepy and disturbing conspiracy theories behind Mario 64 for a very long time now, and I thought what better time to do it than Halloween. But yeah, that's all for me, guys, so thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all later. Goodbye.